In spring 1981, anger erupted on the streets of London. The capital had not seen this level of violence for more than a century.
How long can you suppress a feeling? Right? How long can you suppress a feeling, man?
The police lost control. Hundreds of officers were injured. Fighting, looting and burning filled Brixton streets.
That was the mood of everybody. Kill or be killed.
This is the story of why more than 1,000 Londoners declared war on the police.
They couldn't care what injuries they caused, or even if they killed people. That was quite obvious.
They were the enemy. Simple as that.
Brixton is a warning of what can happen when a community feels targeted because of its culture or the colour of its skin.
Nothing but nothing justifies what happened on Saturday night, and I cannot condemn it too strongly.
It was a very good atmosphere before the problem. Very good atmosphere.
By the 1980s, Brixton, one of the most deprived corners of South London, was the undisputed capital of Black Britain.
Brixton was a great place, you know. Everything that one needed was there.
Because there was green banana, yam, sweet potato, breadfruit, and corn, and mangoes, and, you know, all these things that dribble them out water. You know, you could get them sugar cane and all these things.
But now a second generation of young black people were growing up in Britain and expecting more from the country which was supposed to be their home, but where some politicians were prepared to play the race card.
People are really rather afraid that this country might be rather swamped by people with a different culture.
In 1981, 2 years into Margaret Thatcher's first government, race relations were at a crossroads.
We now had on our hands a generation of young black people who were British and who were not prepared to be as grateful, shall we say, as their parents for the new life that we had afforded them.
As mass unemployment hit the black community hardest, 1 in every 2 black youths was left out of work.
We had a feeling that we just weren't wanted in this country. Weren't wanted, that we were despised.
In January 1981, bitterness intensified when 13 black youngsters were burnt to death at a party in New Cross in southeast London. 3 months later, the failure to charge anyone for what the black community was convinced was a racist attack seemed a betrayal by the police.
We felt the police just didn't care. There was tensions already between us growing at the time, and that just pushed us further apart more than ever.
You know, when I came to this country, I was told, if you get lost or if you have any problem, just go to a policeman.
Oh, yes, we were told that.
You know, you wouldn't ask anybody directions. You would go to a policeman because you see them as nice people.
But by 1981, the relationship between police and the young black men growing up in areas like Brixton had degenerated to a point of no return.
I'm in the underground and I'm in Oxford Circus, changing tubes to come to Brixton. And that's when I first noticed these couple of men. They grabbed me. Excuse me, I'm arresting you for suspicion of pickpocketing from persons unknown. And I'm thinking, me no pickpocket, me a Rasta.
Almost every young black man in Brixton had a story to tell about police harassment or brutality.
I remember getting on a bus one time from Brixton going to Clapham, and they came on the bus and said I was nicking a purse, took me off the bus, couldn't find nothing on me. They just gave me a good kicking and sent me away. You know, what could you do? There's like 5, 6 police and just you as a little black kid. They didn't arrest no one, they just beat us up and left us there.
I didn't join the police as a racist, but whilst I was in the police, I became one. We just went out and made a beeline for whosoever we wanted to arrest. So you'd say you'd seen them try 2 or 3 car door handles. You'd seen them sizing someone up at a bus stop, and you'd see them put their hand towards a lady's handbag. People had no chance of proving their innocence. Evidence was planted. That was a common practice, and assaulting people was almost a daily occurrence.
They used to raid dances. I was in one particular dance where they battered down the door, beat up women, beat up men. There was countless police vans outside on Elm Park that night. And I was one of those, in one of the police vans, taken back to Brixton police station. My face pressed down to the floor. There was a boot upon my neck, upon my back, and then we were dragged out to the police cells. Sitting in that cell and hearing the screams of the older guys along the cell corridor, it was just frightening. So that's when I realised that these stories weren't extravagances. It was actually happening.
We were the occupying army, if you like, and thinking of the people of Brixton as the enemy, that there wasn't a good person amongst them, that they were all criminals, that blackness equated with criminality.
Despite the close attentions of Brixton's police, there was one place where young black men did feel safe. Railton Road, in the heart of Brixton, was known locally as the front line.
It was the only place that you felt really comfortable, that the police wouldn't just always be able to grab you.
From this cruel world, we could go there and just be with our kin. We felt it belonged to the West Indian community.
Everyone gathered on the front line. They had pool places, they had gambling houses. It was just like a little activity place.
It was a hub of activity down there. It was just always something going on the front line, always.
It was the place to be, the place to be seen, the place where DJs practiced their rhymes, the place where you scored weed.
I made my livelihood from there. That was all that was in my head. Be on the front line and sell some dope, basically.
But with its mix of drugs, illegal drinking clubs and blues parties, Railton Road was on the front line of the war on crime for Brixton's police.
It was a place where young blacks, muggers or thieves or whatever congregated. A place where the police and the blacks were staring at each other.
The crucial issue for the police in Brixton was street crime. There was twice as many muggings here as anywhere else in London. As far as Brixton's commander was concerned, the reason was simple.
Is this racial crime? Is this black youths picking on old white ladies, or is it everyone being attacked?
I think you'll find that a large, very large proportion of this type of crime is committed by black youths.
It's like you see the cloud and you feel, well, oh, it's going to rain because the cloud is dark.
In the days before?
Yeah. In the days before, yes.
In April 1981, the police claimed crime in Brixton had reached a crisis point, with muggings going up nearly 4 times faster than in any other borough.
Under the surface, there was always a fire smouldering, and it just needed something else to set it off.
Brixton's police were about to provide that something. On April the 6th, they launched an undercover operation codenamed Swamp 81.
They used to wear these big black shoes, so they'd stand out a mile even though they were in plain clothes. They always had that police shoes on. So if you wanted to know a policeman, just look at his feet and you'd see.
On Monday morning, 5 days before rioting erupted, 10 squads of plainclothes police officers left Brixton Police Station.
What I condoned was a build-up of police because the crime was building up within Brixton area, and it seemed to me and experienced detective officers that a lot of it was emanating from the front line.
It was simply stopping and searching any young black man that happened to move in and around the central Brixton area.
They just stop any and every black person, young or old, but especially kids.
Everywhere you look, there was a Bobby there, him and his friend, walking up and down and harassing you and asking you to what you got in your pockets and stuff like that. And if you didn't want to tell him, he got a bit aggressive.
Even on Rowton Road, they was actually brave enough to come to the top end of the line and make a number of arrests there. We thought, wow, they're gonna try arrest us anywhere now.
Tension was rising, but crime was falling. And as muggings shrunk by half in the week of Swamp 81, the police claimed the operation an outright success.
If you knew clearly that blacks were responsible for the greater number of muggings than whites, you would be foolish. You don't have to be a trained officer to know that you would be foolish to go and chase whites rather than blacks.
Quite obviously, in those sort of situations, you are going to catch a lot of innocent people in the net.
Victimized for no other reason other than he is black.
By Friday afternoon, after nearly 1,000 stops had been made in a week, almost all of Brixton became alarmed by the tactics of the police.
I was walking along Acre Lane, as usual, and I saw a policeman with a young black guy. And he was really giving it to him, boxing him, dragging him, and my heart began to pound, you know, and I thought, oh my God, he's going to kill that boy. And then someone was coming up to me and I looked, and it was a tall, handsome policeman. And he looked down at me and he says, what are you looking at? And I says, I'm looking at the way he's doing that boy. And he says, mind your own business and go your way before you get your share. And for him to speak to me like that, I think that was dreadful. And my share of what? What was he going to do to me? I was just taken aback and disappointed.
Swamp 81 had galvanized the whole community against the police.
You can't say anything, you can't stand and look, because you will be told, move on. And if you refuse, you would be arrested.
We had no hope. So it come to a point now that we didn't care anymore. We didn't care anymore.
What are you going to do, just sit and take it?
In inner cities across Britain, anger towards the police and the government had been brewing. In just 1 week, Swamp 81 had pushed Brixton to the brink. As plainclothes officers went back on duty on Friday night, the police had no idea what they were walking into. Nothing looked out of the ordinary. Brixton was just getting ready for the weekend.
I was actually in the pool room in Stass's playing the Space Invaders. I was like crazy about Space Invaders. I just used to sit on that machine forever.
I was hustling, selling my weed.
I was thinking, as I usually did on a Friday evening. Weekends here. Where am I going to go on Saturday, maybe Sunday? What clothes am I going to wear? What girls' numbers can I get?
At about 6 o'clock, a young constable, a couple of months into service, was on what he thought was a routine call.
It was a warm day, I remember that, because I had just my shirt. Wasn't wearing a tunic, so I was in shirt sleeves, and we had new open collars there. You didn't have to wear a tie.
With every young black man in Brixton seeing the police as the enemy, any event was ripe for misinterpretation. A fight in a pool hall was all it took to set things off.
Eventually, I know that one man stabbed another man, and when you realise that he got stabbed, he ran out of Stasis.
I saw coming towards me from a distance someone running, not towards me, but in my direction. There was a huge hole, huge gap in his back. It was pouring blood.
The police officer decided to question the injured youth, a local called Michael Bailey.
I think he must have been weak because he fell over. Just as he fell over, there's a policeman that came down.
I was then joined by several other black people.
But we would all run out there thinking that, yeah, because, you know, you kids, you just want to see fire, innit?
I tried to explain. I mean, I was covered in his blood as well by now. And he managed to get away. A couple of minutes later, I heard on the radio that the van unit had found him and that they were trying to help him.
Police records show the officers at the scene had already radioed for an ambulance. But the crowd refused to believe them.
They're trying to nick the guy that's on the floor who's bleeding. So we're saying, look, can't you see that the man's bleeding? Can't you see that the man, it looks like he's dying? Because I'm sure I can remember he was changing colour.
They were trying to help him in the back of the van, and people's perceptions again that they were trying to hurt him.
The hospital was like 3-4 minutes down the road. You'll be there in 2 minutes as long as you put your sirens on. And they were saying, no, they can't do it, and they weren't going to take this guy in the back of their car.
And it escalated from there.
Within minutes, the misunderstanding had turned into a standoff as 40 black youths gathered around the police van with the stabbed man inside.
I joined the melee. I joined the melee, so to speak.
You got these three cops cornered, innit? And, you know what I mean, you're always being cornered by them.
Next thing you know, bricks and stones and buckles start fling.
Everything broke out right there and then.
On that day, I was part of a team that drove around in a van, and the call came up for urgent assistance.
Over the bridge.
The operators on the radio at Scotland Yard were calling for all available units to make their way there.